know, I always get nervous when um, I'm doing lives because I mean you have a podcast obviously too, so you know how it is. Like you could always edit anything out.
Hmm.
So I'm like used to that just kind of rambling, and then if I need to edit it out, I can. And we're live. Hello everybody. Community conversations today. Our dear Ethan is not here today, but we are thinking of him and we love him, and we are filling in for his place today. I'm Tom. This is Uma. We are two IOCDF advocates that love talking about OCD. Give us a shout. Let us know where you're at, where you're coming from. Let us know you're here. Um, just before we get started, I want to let everybody know and just remind that this is a safe space. This live stream is educational and is not intended to replace therapy. For treatment related questions, please work with your provider or contact a local clinician. You can use the IOCDF's online resource directory at iocdf.org, find-help to locate a trained clinician near you. The IOCDF is not a crisis hotline. If you are in a crisis or you are ever feeling suicidal or unsafe, please go to your local emergency room or call 911 or the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. You can also access online at www.988lifeline.org. And just a reminder again, we want to create a safe space and be kind and respectful to everyone. At the end of the day, we're all here to support one another. So just a note that this is being broadcasted on several social media platforms and being recorded. Oh, Val, you always outdo yourself.
Mm,
Hey, handsome and hey, beautiful. Which one?
Val is
Which
my
one am
favorite.
I?
You're both. Val is now my adopted mom, and her
Oh,
husband is my adopted dad. And he goes by
amazing,
Pop, and he literally texts me and checks in on me like Pop. And
amazing.
it's amazing.
That's so nice.
I'm seeing people from
Wonderful, wonderful
Texas.
couple. Wonderful couple.
I'm seeing people from Texas, lots of people from Texas. I just left Texas. I'm so sorry you're there, and I'm wishing you the best in the heat.
How long did you live in Texas?
16 really long years. Really long. I was in Dallas, though, not Houston. There seems to be a lot of Houstonians here. Also, hi, Matt. I'm so happy to see you.
Sarah said she's new to the live events. Third one, but first on YouTube. Looking forward to chatting with you. Sarah, great to have you here. We're glad you're here. Beth, we'll get to your comment in a little bit. We'll definitely talk about moving with your brother and how we could talk about moving in. I know Uma just moved too, so
Mhm.
where'd you move to? Wisconsin, right?
I did. And Amy, I see in the comments, is in Wisconsin. So, hello. Yes, I just moved to Madison a month ago.
How's that been so far? Good. I heard Madison was like voted one of the best places to live in the United States.
It's the number one place to live in the United States. It's
Wow.
ranked. Yeah.
Wow.
It is a hidden gem. It's the number one place to live in America. It's the bike capital of North America. It has the biggest farmers market in America. It has a lot of random parts of it that are just like you would never have thought. I think it's a hidden gem. And in terms of the move, which directly related to OCD, it's been a lot. Like I lived in Texas for 16 long years, largely just extremely afraid of all that would come with the move. And my values aligned me to moving here for quite a while. But doing it was so difficult. And especially, people with OCD know that a lot of times, like really big stressful life events can induce or contribute to relapse sometimes. And so I was extremely afraid of that, knowing what I know, and did it anyway. And it's been the full spectrum of things. It's been more beautiful, and I've experienced more recovery than I ever thought possible. And it's been extremely difficult and just showing me how much I can cope with. So, not a
Absolutely.
linear answer, but it's been a lot.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I don't think some people don't realize like how long 16 years to be in one place is too. Um, I feel like I didn't realize that until I was born and raised in Connecticut for 18 years, and then once I left, like I've obviously gone back to visit, but like I haven't lived there again. And like 18 years is a long time. Like it's just
Mhm.
so that's a lot of change. But with change comes a lot of good things too. So
Absolutely, and to stay away from the change solely because of the fear of what if, we deserve more than that.
for sure, I agree. Mike, good to see you. My brother went to University of Michigan, so I'm familiar with those schools, Uma.
Yeah, I didn't realize that there was, like, a whole new circuit, like, there's so many, like,
Such
football
a
circuits.
such a strong uh like community, for lack of a better word, with alums and stuff too.
Yeah, and people here just seem so much more connected to each other and themselves, and it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. Everyone can visit.
Yeah, I don't think there's many people in New York that are connected to each other.
That's where I was before Texas. I was there, till I
Really?
was 11. Yeah, in the
Yeah,
city, so very
yeah.
stark difference.
It's a heck of a place. A lot of great things and all. Just
Yeah,
very loud.
yeah, and it's like, what is personal space?
Yeah, there's none. There's none. Beth,
Wow, there's
I see you're moving in with your brother. And 6:58, 6:57. Sorry, Beth said, "I'm petrified. I'm going to be moving in with my brother in a few weeks. Been hiding out from pandemic for 3.5 years. My brother isn't scared of it at all. He goes everywhere and does everything. Long story short, last year, a girl downstairs told landlord she saw a bug, so exterminator came. Pesticides are deadly to my hermit crabs, so I decided to leave because I don't want to expose them to the chemicals if she sees another bug. I was a mess last year. I cannot let anything happen to my pets." I'm so sorry to hear that. That's a really, really tough situation. I agree. I always protect the pets at all costs. We had to put our dog down in June, um, and she was 15, and I think I would have like if a coyote was going to attack her, I would have fought the coyote for her for like without a doubt. So like I hear you. It's a really, really tough situation. I hope you and your brother can talk about what it's going to be like before you move in, so you can kind of get a little bit more preparation in moving in.
Yeah, and Beth, I also wanna say, I mean, echoing all the love and care that Tom beautifully shared, and I'm just reading through your comments, and there's a part there that says, "I would not be able to live with myself if my pets were harmed," and I want to validate how real that feels and how much it shows how much, of course, you care about your pets because OCD attacks everything that we value, and with the big and, the fact that you feel like you could not live with yourself, like, we are a lot more capable of coping with things than we think, and even though it feels impossible and it would be such a horrible thing if anything were to happen to your pets, like, I just wanna empower you to consider the possibility that it could and would be extremely difficult, and you could cope with it, you could move through it, and you are so strong and so resilient, and I believe in you.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to echo also, Beth. I saw your comment at 7:07. Everyone, including my doctor and therapist, think this move will be good. It will force me to live normally. And I know you obviously disagree with that. I mean, I think the thing about OCD is we're never going to know until we try, and OCD is trying to push that uncertainty and eat away at that uncertainty as much as possible. So um, just hang in there, and I know you're going to in whatever situation you're in, you're going to care for your pets as always, and you're going to battle your OCD. So I know that it'll be tough, but it could end up being worth it. And you might as well try because we're not going to let OCD stop us from that type of fulfillment in life. Cash, I'm sorry for being depressing. Um, That wasn't my intention sharing about my dog passing. I have a lot of happy memories too with my dog. So um,
I think that's just a testament to the fact that life is a full spectrum of everything, and we're allowed to experience and feel all of the emotions.
yeah,
The pain
definitely.
is worth
I,
talking about, and the joy too.
yeah, absolutely.
But you're
I think I learned that with OCD early on was like it's going to throw a variety of emotions at you all the time, and I think it's important to know that like two emotions can exist at one time. I think that was like a lesson I learned not soon enough, but I have learned over the past few years, especially, is that like both things can exist. I can be sad, but also happy about something in the past. I can, be anxious about the future, but also be excited about something in the future. Two things can be coexistent.
That's pretty much the overlying theme of my recovery right now, just allowing it all to exist. And it's really liberating, difficult,
Yeah,
but liberating.
yeah, I agree. Um, Yeah, it's like I said about this conference too. Like the main theme of the past conference was for me like you don't have to be healed to heal others. And Callie Warner said it, and I was like so moved by that because it's something that I had always struggled with is trying to talk about recovery and the hope that ERP gives us. But then, if I was having a bad day or was having, some sort of setback, I felt like that imposter syndrome. But the reality and that pressure to be fully recovered when there's going to be ups and downs.
I'm seeing I just wanted to highlight in the comments that everybody's saying hello to each other and talking to each other by name. Like, what a testament to this community and how much we are all just sharing space and creating space for each other. And we're also connected. I love this community so much. Thank you all for being so kind to each other and to us.
Uma, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what you're doing? Obviously, because you're our guest tonight, so I want to talk about you. People are tired of hearing from me, so I want to focus on what you're doing with your research and with your move to Wisconsin.
Well, thanks for asking that. I can easily turn this around on you and interview you, so I might just do that. But and this might answer some of the questions or the comments about UW-Madison, which is that so I'm a neuroscientist. I'm many things, but one of them is a neuroscientist. I'm a researcher. I just earned my master's, and I've done research on the neurobiological understanding of psychiatric disorders and developing novel therapeutics. And there is a huge focus on OCD for very personal reasons. If it's not obvious, I live with OCD. And so I am now starting my PhD at University of Wisconsin-Madison. That's why I moved here. And I'm starting at neuroscience to study the neurobiology of OCD and related disorders and comorbid disorders and help develop novel therapeutics. And so I it's been a very long road getting here. And I mentioned that because OCD played a huge part in my trajectory as a non-traditional student and just as a human who struggled with undiagnosed, untreated OCD for a long time. And it really, really inspires and informs the work I do now. At one point, I left school with a 1.83 GPA because I couldn't function and didn't. I literally just couldn't do anything. And now I'm
That's so
here.
that's so crazy to think about because I don't think I like at one I I've known you for a while now. I feel like I never knew that, and I would never put you in a category of having a 1.8 GPA because you're somebody that I look up to and so many people in the community look up to, especially with your intelligence. So it's so crazy to me that that was actually a thing and that OCD was affecting you in that way.
Well, thank you for saying that because I think it's such a testament to the power that undiagnosed and untreated OCD can hold and the debilitation that can come from a disorder. While yes, there's so much hope for recovery that happens when we get treatment and when we are in recovery. But I lived with pretty much my whole life. I mean, my clinicians think I was born with OCD, and I was in college for 2 years. even sit in class properly because I was so consumed by what if I don't understand what's going on? What if I don't hear every single word? I would compulsively feel like I have to write every single word down that people were saying. I'd freak out if I missed one word. I started like illegally recording my classes. This is over 10 years ago. People know it's fine. I'd record all my classes. I'd come home and listen to them over and over and over again. And like, I did not want to be doing any of this. This was just, I did not know how to break out of the cycle. And then I just couldn't function. And I remember specifically I tried a neuroscience class that time, and within three weeks I had an F, and then just I still have that on my transcript, and I remember it all the time because of the testament to the power of recovery. Because when I came back to school years later and made 100 in that class, simply because I now had the tools to cope with the extreme obsessions I was having and not do compulsions, like it's wild, and that's why I'm here to study the disorder. And I'm someone who's extremely open in academia and in research about having lived experience, which is extremely uncommon in our field. It's becoming a lot more normalized in clinical settings and becoming a therapist or even a psychologist. But in terms of becoming a researcher, specifically, especially biomedical researchers, like you're told, do not talk about your lived experience, like actively avoid talking about it. You will be discounted. You won't be considered. And I'm here right now talking.
Right.
I mean, I just refuse to live in a world where I don't get to be my full self and get to explain and share that my research is motivated by understanding the debilitation from the disorder because of the havoc it had wreaked on my life. So that's what I'm doing at UW-Madison, and it's wild. And I saw some of the comments about the research there. It's such an amazing research program. It is. I am joining a department with almost 200 faculty members. Like, I never thought I would be in a department where I have too many choices for the research and the investigator that I get to work with to study OCD. But here we are in today's day and age, and it's amazing. And I'm really, really, really grateful.
Oh, that's amazing. Your story is so inspirational, like Matt said. Matt, I hope you're well, by the way. Nice seeing you here. I agree about the collab on the podcast. I think Uma's going to have to come on Smalls Talk eventually. But yeah, I mean, I think it just goes to show kind of what OCD takes away and what we realize we can get back with proper treatment. And I think that's kind of Cash mentioned in the comments about you can function, but you struggle. You're going to struggle. I think what we're trying to do at the OCDF is really tell people that effective ERP can give you a life that is very fulfilling, and you're not struggling every day, and you're doing things that you thought you could never do. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from the gold standard of ERP is that I want people to know is that with effective treatment and earlier diagnosis, we can save lives. We can have people, give people the life that they never thought they had.
Yeah, that's for me. I feel like every aspect of my life now is a complete testament to exactly what you said. Like, no part of my life right now did I ever think or even conceptualize in the years and decades of me suffering with undiagnosed OCD and other disorders that I would ever have. I never imagined I could be living and thriving this way. And I am still in recovery, to be clear. I love normalizing that and making sure people know this. Like, I'm still in treatment. I'm still in recovery. It's not linear. And the power that recovery has had in my life, that's why I'm motivated to be here alongside Tom, alongside all these beautiful people who do this work, because there is so much power in access to proper treatment and recovery. And we all deserve to live this life that's available to us.
Yeah,
OCD doesn't get
definitely.
to take that from us.
Yeah, I think there's this, something I've noticed is that people want to talk about the struggle, but like, let's not forget about the triumphs too, and how you've overcome, and give people that hope of showing what effective treatment can do for people and can do for you. And I know obviously there's a lot of barriers with that, and I know there's in some areas there's not enough special OCD specialists, and sometimes people can't afford it, and I know it's really tough. But I think it's important to highlight those triumphs and let people know that that is totally possible and totally within reach with effective treatment.
I saw a question in the chat that I have actually gotten a lot, and I wanted to talk about it here, which I think it's from Cash and saying, Uma, do you worry without OCD you would not have the intellect or results? Sometimes think drove me. I have thought about this question because I have OCD, and OCD has you doubting everything about and thinking what if about pretty much anything. And so when I had evidence, when my brain created evidence that OCD was protecting me, I very much fell into that category, like, what if my OCD is like why I think the way I think, or this, that, and the other thing. It only takes, number one, sitting with the uncertainty of maybe, maybe not. Like, that's the easy answer. But zooming out and looking at my recovery, like all of the parts of my life where I've been able to, I don't even like the word intellect necessarily, but the places where I've been able to express my knowledge and curiosity and grow and thrive and do what I do has come as a result of recovering from OCD, not having OCD. And if I had any evidence that like having OCD drove my like I can't find one shred of evidence. It's easy for my OCD to latch onto, well, what if the overthinking, especially with mental compulsions, like what if the ruminating, the overthinking, the mental review, what if this, that, or the other thing like yields me an answer? And it's not binary, it's not linear because thinking is a thing, but doing compulsions never yields me anything positive. It really, really doesn't.
Mm,
And I just really wanted to address this question because I fully believe, at least for myself, that my whatever it is you want to label, intellect, capability, progress in life is due to recovery from OCD, not because of OCD.
100%. Yeah. I love how you answered that question. I think it's a really, really good question because there are, I hate OCD, but I also wouldn't have changed my journey for anything. Right. And I think that just because I wouldn't change my journey doesn't mean that I think the OCD made me who I am, or should be um, attributed my success, but like in life. But I think both, like we said before, both can exist. I want to take it to the comments real quick. Um, the Waco kid, Jim, it is awesome to have you here. I'm really, really proud of you for being here, for listening tonight, and being here and talking about your struggles. We're here for you. I love how everybody in the comments has come together with you, and I agree with Cash. Talk away. We want to hear everything about whatever questions you guys have. These community conversations are all about you guys, and ask whatever questions you want, and we're here to answer.
I'm seeing another question at 6:15 from Spence Robert saying, I've polled several OCD and ADD advocates about this. As advocates who battle misinformation, do you make a distinction between stigmatizing a disorder and trivializing it? And I'm curious, Tom, if you have thoughts on that, because I do.
Why don't you go first?
Okay. I feel like we're just trading our podcast hats right now. Like, hey,
Yeah.
what do you think about this? Um, so I think it's both. And I think that, and I think about this a lot because as a researcher, like, I think oftentimes I just want to say this too. Like, I think in the community and finding this community, it oftentimes feels like, wow, we finally found our safe space where people understand OCD and like, it's great. And we're doing this work because there's the vast majority of people who don't know what OCD is. And there's a lot of stigmatizing and trivializing and both and all the other things. I particularly spend most of my time in the space where OCD is still completely not understood as a researcher. So that being said, in that question, I think it's both and because I think inherent in the idea of stigmatizing a disorder and trivializing it, like if someone is trivializing OCD by saying that, oh, it's a quirk or it's something that we want to be, or just thinking that it's a positive thing, I still think that creates stigma because it fundamentally just perpetuates that there's something wrong with claiming that OCD has wreaked havoc on your life and it's been disabling if people think that it's not something that's disabling. So that's where I feel like it can be both. I also think that in terms of battling or working to lessen misinformation, there is the side where it's trivialized because it's fundamentally misunderstood and it's made out to be a quirk or an adjective or this, that, or the other thing. And there's also the stigma around even disclosing the struggle with mental illness and the belief, that some people still have of like people who talk about mental health or mental illness are weak or it's not a real
Mm.
thing, this, that, or the other thing. So I think there's a stigma or there's a difference, and it can converge as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I went through a situation, obviously working in athletics as a collegiate strength coach, especially. Um, I worked with college football for a while, and that was a very heavy stigma of the macho, the toxic masculinity of pull yourself up by your bootstraps. If you have mental health struggles, you're weak. If you're sad or depressed, you're weak, and that was something that I tried to highlight to athletes that shouldn't be the way we think about mental health. Um, but I've been in those situations as well. Being that I told that I shouldn't talk about my mental health journey in my field, and because administration and athletes are going to be afraid of what of my past or who I am, and I think that right there is what is stigmatizing mental health. By not sharing, we're just adding to that stigma.
And I'm curious, Tom, because I wonder if other people think this. Like, I mean, you've been an IOCDF advocate and just been involved with this community for a very long time, longer than me, because I didn't even know I had OCD until like 3 years ago. So, how do you cope with the heaviness and the amount of misinformation and stigma and all of the above that exists? Like, does it dishearten you? Do you feel hopeless? Does it like inspire you to do more? Like, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, I mean that's a really really good question. We gave our lead advocate group did a talk about OCD in the media and misinformation, where I shared about my story about being abused by the coach that I worked for, and being in Sports Illustrated and stuff. And I think after that occurred for me, all this misinformation that I see and that I hear about, I think I look at it as opportunity now, opportunity to educate, opportunity to raise awareness, and opportunity to provide the real information, right? And I think that's what you're doing in the medical field, right? And also just me in athletics, and I feel like all of our advocates, our IOCDF advocates, have specific areas that they're providing that real OCD, real information about what it really is in their specific areas, which is huge. But I mean, I'd be lying if I said there were some headlines like, the one about the celery juice that didn't make me want like punch the air. I was like, you've got to be joking, because you make these big strides, and then it's like you feel like you're taking you know two steps back immediately, and it's like, oh, come on, like we just powered through this line of stigma, and now this one's coming out with OCD cleaning or whatever. And I think it's not to get discouraged, just to try to look at it as, the more we can look at them as more opportunities to educate, the better.
I take so much inspiration and hope from you and the other advocates who have developed such a resilience to the sheer volume of misinformation and stigma that come, because I just want to normalize being, I suppose, earlier in that journey of
Mhm.
navigating that much. And it could also be like I just deal with the sheer volume I deal with on a day to day basis, especially, to be honest, like from a field. Again, a neuroscientist. I'm talking with my research to psychiatrists, neuroscientists, other therapists, and clinicians like all day long. And just it is disheartening to feel the amount of misinformation. And of course, I am turning that into advocacy, and it gives
Right.
me purpose to, my research. In order to communicate my research, I have to explain what OCD is and is not. And so inherent in that is my advocacy. It does inspire me, but I do want to put a name to and um, normalize the, initial, I guess, amount of sadness that can come with just because to me as a person
Definitely.
with OCD, like what it translates to, and it feels personal even though it's not, what it initially translates to is, wow, I'm telling you I have OCD and you're telling me that when I'm telling you I was disabled by this horrible illness, you're telling me you think it's just this like fun, desirable, quirky adjective that like you're it feels like a dismissal of my struggle. And again, that's a personal thing, but I just want to normalize that for anyone watching who's on their own journey of advocacy or even just explaining what OCD is to people in their lives for the first time. Maybe it's hard, and you have an opportunity to continue to change the way it's viewed, and it's painful, and thank you for doing it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's super important to highlight, and I think one thing my mom always told me was that we can't control the way someone reacts, but we can always control the way we deliver a message. And I think what I've learned is, from the situation that I was in with the coach, I had two choices. I could be an angry, what he labeled me as, and try to bash him in an interview with Sports Illustrated, or I could use that national platform as an educational platform and a way to bring more light to what OCD is. So it's picking those choices and making those decisions that are going to really push that stigma away from OCD.
Your mom is an absolute gem, by the way. I had the privilege of meeting her this summer, and she makes my
Yeah.
heart really happy.
Yeah, no, my mom's a rock star. I think she's gotten more involved in advocacy over the past few years. I think I don't. I mean, I give her a ton of credit, but I don't think I realized until the past year or two that how tough it is being a parent with OCD, of a child with OCD, right? I mean, I think um, for 6 7 years she was doing everything for me and was watching me like a hawk and was like, I was literally a dependent, and I couldn't get out of the house. I couldn't do anything without her. And then you go from being that type of parent to now your son or daughter is in recovery and they're able to live on their own, or they're able to cook their own meals, they're able to do certain things. And I could, for a while I didn't realize like how tough that is, a transition as a parent, and now I realize that. So shout out mom for taking all that stuff, and sacrificing so much for me over the years. And then also just I appreciate you and the transition that you've made into a different role of parenting, even at my age. And much love.
Hmm. And I also want to say and speak to people who don't have that parental figure in their life and who have to navigate their OCD or their mental health journey or any and all of it alone because it's not understood or
Mhm.
validated by their parents. And I just want to say, seeing parents like yours and like Ethan's mom, like there
Mhm.
is a part that, if, there is some grief and like, I don't, I wish I had that. And though, like, and also, Kim Vincenti comes to mind as well.
Yes.
There's also just this beauty in seeing the kind of love and care that a parent can give their child through that, and realizing I think I internalized a belief that I'm just like fundamentally unlovable because of this, that, or the other thing, and seeing that that's not the case. It's just I didn't have a situation where that was part of what was possible with my family, but it is possible with other families. And it gives me more hope in the world and gives me, I don't know,
Yeah.
I love
No,
seeing
absolutely. No,
parents
I
that
think it's
way.
a really, really good point to make. And I mean, I say all the time how fortunate I was to have that support system. I would not be there without them for sure. So, I met a few people at the conference that their parents had passed, or they weren't in touch with their parents, and I think it's um, you know kudos to them for being so strong and navigating OCD without that guidance, because it's super challenging to do it even with a support system.
And then we have surrogate parents like Val.
Yeah.
Val for me. I see a comment from Jen at 6:30 saying, "I have a meeting Thursday that's circled around advocating for OCD. First time I've taken it to this level and I'm a tad nervous." And I think she says later that it's at her church. And I just wanted to highlight that because Jen, in talking about advocacy, I first want to say I'm so proud of you. That's a huge step. And with that, I also want you to know that it's so normal to feel nervous about anything to that effect, especially though advocating for OCD because of everything we talked about, because OCD uniquely faces a misunderstanding and a stigma. And sometimes there is an additional amount of labor and advocacy on us to be able to bring OCD back onto the level playing field and then start doing something about it. I just want to empower you and want you to know that you're not alone, that we're in your corner. We're all cheering you on. We're all on this journey with you. And just please take it at your own pace and know that there's this goes to everybody. There is no perfect way to advocate. There's no right way. There's not an amount or a way you should be doing it. You do however resonates. You take whatever step feels safe for you. And we are here cheering you on all of your own unique advocacy journeys.
I second that, Jen. I think it's awesome, and I think it's great that you're doing it at your church. As I think there's a lot of area to cover with scrupulosity, OCD, and faith. Obviously, Katie O'Dunn is really leading a great mission with OCD and faith, and is doing a tremendous amount of work there. So I think there's so much ground to cover with so many different faith backgrounds. I also want to make sure that A to Z mentions. I missed the comment. My computer is like lagging like crazy. But I've been having severe OCD, unwanted thoughts about harming some of my family members. It has caused me some suicidal ideation. I know you asked if we'll answer your question. We're here for you, first off, and I'm really, really sorry you're dealing with that and going through that. I do want to just point out that obviously this live stream is not a replacement for therapy, but if you are dealing with, if you are in a crisis or feeling suicidal, to call 911 or the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988, or go to your local emergency room if you are feeling like you are in a crisis. We are here for you, but we want to keep you safe first and foremost. We are with you as always. Michael Schramm, I miss you a lot. I'm gonna have to see you before the next conference. I can't go another year. Stacy Hirschman mentioned NOCD with when it in relation to more affordable care. NOCD does a tremendous job, and definitely something to check out if there's no OCD specialist in your area, or if you're having trouble. Also, make sure you check out the IOCDF's online resource directory at iocdf.org/find help to locate a trained clinician near you, because there are options, and there is ways to find that help. Keep firing off your questions. We got about 20 minutes left. We are here for you and here to answer whatever you guys want us to answer.
Yeah, I also just wanted to mention in terms of affordable care, there are clinicians who offer sliding scale services as well. I would definitely recommend first using the IOCDF's resources and NoCD and like parsing through who actually does evidence-based treatment for OCD. But within those lists, there are people who do sliding scale. So I would look for that as well. I totally have been there and understand that lack of access, and it needs to be improved. I also saw a message from Akash at 6:38 saying, "Thank you for bringing up scrupulosity." And that made me think of like, do people want us to talk more about scrupulosity? Are there any questions, or is that like particularly a topic that you, Akash, or anyone else wants to hear more? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, definitely. We're here to talk about any and all subtypes of OCD. Yeah, Matt, this is also a good plug for you and Mike's support groups. Matt is called OCD Warrior Badasses, and Mike's is called OCD Friends, and they're on the IOCDF support group search. So definitely check those out. Matt, I love what you're doing with the OCD Warrior Badasses, and
I just want to
I
Or
would
I just wanna
definitely
give a
agree.
big shout out to Matt. Like,
Yeah,
Matt is just such a light, just such a beautiful human whose advocacy is incredible and just uplifts everybody, and that's evident through the chat, that's evident through social media and everything that he does. I just wanna give a massive shout out and thank you, Matt, for being who you are.
yeah, seriously. I think it's Matt does a really good job of advocating and being an advocate, even just within the comments. I think that's a really strong and just in daily life. Like I think everybody thinks that advocacy is being on a screen or writing a blog. Like there's so many different ways to advocate, and I think seeing how people advocate in daily life, just in how they interact with others and how they talk about OCD and inform people, like that's advocacy.
Truly. Advocacy it does not have to look any certain way. It does not need to be public facing or doesn't need to be audio, video, text. Like it's literally just even like I believe like living with OCD and like being a testament to recovery and sharing about that if and when it ever feels resonant. Like that is advocacy to me.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
Oh, I love that there's comments in support of Matt as well.
Yeah.
Um, I just saw Amy say OCD research, education, and support group. Is that like a question about if there's a support group for that, or is that a support group that exists right now?
And also A to Z, I hear you. Explaining the obsessions definitely just connecting and with others and talking about OCD, especially with people that understand. I think it really does help, and I feel like that has been a really central theme to my personal recovery is sharing my experiences with others that understand. I think it's definitely been a real addition to that.
I see a question from Jen at 641. How do the support groups work? You just join, or is there a fee involved? I would love to join one. So, to if you're talking, Jen, about the groups through the IOCDF, through my understanding, there is no fee involved. I think sometimes for special interest groups, there's some sort of like signing up for being on the mailing list to be able to receive communications and when meetings are. But overall, through the IOCDF, to the best of my knowledge, there is no fees involved. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I think a lot of different groups have different requirements and rules. Sometimes support groups will have a fee of like pay what you can. Sometimes they'll have no fee. Some have fees just because it fills a spot and there's a capacity or for that date or it makes people show up to the support group if they pay a little fee. So, but then there's also a ton without fees too. So I think there's a lot of different options out there. I think is the best part about it.
I saw a comment to saying talking helps and knowing not alone. And I think that kind of really highlights everything that we as advocates do. And the point or one of the main points of the IOCDF and all of the programming that the IOCDF puts on. Like the reason we share our stories is not to just like hear ourselves talk about ourselves and to highlight our own personal wins. Like I don't think we gain anything from that. It
No.
is to normalize that these are things that we are living with, that you are not alone. Because I think one of the most key defining features of OCD is feeling like we are the only ones struggling with this thought, this compulsion, this level of debilitation, and this suffering. And knowing other people have it doesn't lessen the extreme nature of our suffering, but it does let us know that we're not the only ones, we're not alone, and in that we can understand each other. There's this level of compassion, and we can also find inspiration in each other, that they're in recovery and I'm in recovery too, and it just lessens the shame in feeling so just shameful about our experiences. Community is so powerful.
Yeah, definitely. I did see Bree mentioned SIGs. So SIGs are really great. I run the mental health and sports SIG. We're actually more of it's the anxiety and athletes task force now, but um, there's a faith and OCD SIG. There's a BDD SIG, so that Chris Tronson runs. So I think there's so many different ways to get involved, and SIGs are a really really great thing to highlight, and you can check those out at iocdf.org too. Val, that's a great question. What struggles have you both at 7:44 p.m.? Val asked, "What struggles have you both faced being so young? Do you think age is a hindrance?" Um, I think hindsight's always 2020, but there's things I look at. I was diagnosed when I was 16 years old, um, and then obviously I'm 25 now. I think it definitely is. Uma smiled at that. I think it definitely is not. I don't think age is a hindrance, but I definitely think I've learned more about myself the past 9 years than I think I ever could because of OCD. But I don't know if that would have changed if I was older when I was diagnosed. I think, Val, your story is so inspiring to me because of how you lived with OCD for such a long time and how you've represented the seasoned veteran experience of OCD. You're not. I'm not saying any. You're very young to me, so I don't say old or older generations, um, but I think it's so inspiring what you've done, bringing the people together that have been diagnosed with OCD later on, or are being diagnosed now with OCD, that are in an older stage of life. I think it's really really important, and I think the work you're doing is incredible. I think you could talk about what it's been like. I remember you talking about the conference this year about what it was like, finding out you had OCD and being a part of this community. Um, how much of a relief you felt when you met Ethan and when you met everybody at the conference. And I can't even imagine because I think about when I was 16 diagnosed and I felt so lonely. You're a true warrior for being for going through it on your own for such a long time. Uma,
Yeah,
do you think age has been a hindrance to you, or?
I was really thinking about that question as you were answering because I was thinking about Val and what I know about her story, and I feel like it's with each age or each part of life that one, I guess, number one, OCD onsets, and number two, one gets diagnosis. Like there are so many love, like I guess, different parts of that experience that come into play, and so I can't imagine the amount of grief that might come from just how much time one lost to OCD, let alone especially undiagnosed OCD. And so for me, I'm 27, and the reason I was smiling when you said you were 25 is because I was like, you're such a baby. Like I don't know why I keep like thinking you're older than me, and I guess on paper I'm older than you, and my gray hairs say so. But um, nobody called you old, Val. You are younger. I feel like you are younger than me. But yeah, for me and my age, I think sometimes it comes into play in overall like advocating for myself medically, and that's come into play with, my physical illnesses. I live with cancer and other chronic illnesses, as well as of course OCD and other psychiatric conditions. I think advocating for myself, and especially I'm speaking to just like people who had to advocate for themselves medically at such a young age if they didn't have parents or family members who could do it for them. It's extremely difficult to be taken seriously as a young person and to, be speaking to your experience. I think so oftentimes my symptoms overall have just been I've just been gaslit into feeling like I'm just being dramatic, and I think that also comes into play with like my gender and the way I look. But I think age played a role in, being fine, like getting the care I needed and being taken seriously, that
Hmm.
my symptoms actually were as severe as I said they were. And so I think that's one of it. And then also for me, I went I was 22 when I was diagnosed, and I've had it since I was born, since 22 years of having it, but then 3 more years without correct treatment. And so
Mhm.
I think the amount of grief I experience for just losing 25 years of life to OCD that could have been treated earlier on, and also not progressively gotten as severe as it did because of being untreated for so long. I think for me, that's where I think about my age, and I feel a lot of grief, and frankly it inspires my advocacy to want to lessen that gap for people, because we know on average it takes someone 14 to 17 years to get proper diagnosis and treatment. So that's for me how age played a role. And then I
Yeah.
think about imagine being even older and going that long, that
Yeah,
much longer.
for
So
sure. And no, Val, I actually was trying to emphasize how young you are, and I love the term vintage voices. I'm going to use that forever now. I love that term. I went with seasoned veterans because in the athletic realm, that's what we call people that have been a part of a team and have been playing the sport for a while. But it's true, and I think while you're talking about, I think one thing that came to mind about age was I felt like I missed out on a lot of time, especially in high school, right? Like where people say high school and college is the best time of your life or whatever. And, I'm stuck in treatment and, watching my friends compete athletically, go to have a social life, going, getting into all these colleges. I think that was the toughest part for me with having OCD at my age was watching everybody flourish while I was still, in therapy and riddled with OCD. And so I think that's where age definitely came into play. And then fast forward, even at age 25, I feel like I'm still chasing years that I
mm,
lost. And I think that's probably where. But I think in general, that's where everybody feels such an impact with OCD. And I don't think it's an age thing. I think it's just an OCD thing. We're always. I remember after treatment, I felt like I had no identity. I felt I was chasing time, and I had no identity. I didn't know where to start.
I was in the exact same place, and it's still part of recovery in terms of parsing out like what actually do I value versus like what was I motivated to feel, like what did I think was a value but really was just me being so fearful and doing compulsions to enforce that obsession that I thought was a value. And I, that's why I don't necessarily even know how to identify myself. Like when someone asks you, like, who are you? Like, I don't really know how to answer that. I'm trying to find those qualities within myself. I think I'm a curious person. I am learning how to be, playful, and it's really just like irrespective of my words. Like I think it's just finding, like, now that we're not in survival mode anymore, like what is our experience? Like how do we navigate the world? What do we think? What do we feel? What do we enjoy? Like that I just want to speak to the grief of the fact that we even have to do it. Also, I guess the gratitude that we do get to, and just how strange it is as after recovery, what that looks like. But
Definitely.
it is possible.
Yes, definitely possible. A to Z, at 7:45, you asked, has anyone here ever had any unwanted thoughts about killing people? Those were my first intrusive thoughts, and thoughts that still remain very, very pervasive in my OCD. I've had violent intrusive thoughts since I could remember. I thought I was the only one that had them, and then I went to an OCD conference, and everybody raised their hand when I shared my thought, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not the only one." But yeah, it's a really really tough fear to have, and I think what makes it really tough is when I have those thoughts about my loved ones, because I would never hurt anybody. And oftentimes, I feel that people with OCD are some of the kindest, most gentle, most empathetic people in the world, and I'm having these thoughts about slipping and killing a family member or a loved one, and it can be debilitating and can be soul crushing. So I totally empathize with that, and it's a really really tough situation to be in.
Yeah, and I just want to chime in to also say that I've also experienced that. It's one of my strongest themes. I still experience it, and not just killing people, but just unwanted thoughts of harming so many different people and creatures. whom I love. So you're not alone. There's a whole community who understands you.
Yeah.
I saw another question too, from unknown user at 747. I was born in a religious family. I am an atheist, but my family is making me feel scrupulous, like God will punish me if I don't believe him. I don't know how to come out of it. Please help me. I In your comment, I'm reading here that you identify as an atheist. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't know this for a fact, but it sounds like your values lead you to identify as an atheist. And then it says your family is making you feel scrupulous. And so to me, that's just so, you might not see it, but I feel like I see that there's the part of you that you resonate with, and then the part that your OCD is latching onto as a result of what people are telling you and the fear that people are perpetuating to you. And so I just want you to know that there is hope of coming out of it. And it's just, there's no certainty. There's no certainty, especially when we get into like existential religious scrupulosity themes, but all of OCD really. But I do see in your message where you're differentiating, whether you know it or not, like the parts that are you and the parts that are your OCD. And so that gives me hope for you that that's even coming through. And I think all we can do is tell you that you're not alone. You're truly not alone. I can share a 5-second blip of my life. I was in a religious cult for 7 years. OCD directly led me to that religious cult. I was 14, and it was largely because it was where it provided me the most amount of certainty, and I was in a very abusive, traumatic situation where it felt like the safest place to be. And then it was just endless latching on to scrupulosity and magical thinking of latching onto that. And to this day, I came out at 21. I'm 27 now. I still deal so much with the feeling like if I don't go back and subscribe to everything and do all of the compulsive things that the cult had me do, that I, will somehow be punished or I'm wrong, this, that, or the other thing, right? And I'm here to let you know that that all exists, and finding your values and moving forward, not being certain, but moving toward your values is the only thing you can do. And you can do it. I believe in you.
Yeah, no, well said. I mean, I think um, I dealt with. I was born and raised Catholic, and I actually Katie helped me find the United Church of Christ, which is a congregational church, and that's where I belong to now. But my scrupulosity was at its worst when I was Catholic, when I was practicing Catholicism, and um, now I suffer. I still get those. I still have that underlying feeling sometimes of God's gonna hate me if I do this. What if God doesn't love me? That and those type and I struggle with the moral scrupulosity of like or karma scrupulosity. There if something good in my life happens, that means the world's gonna send something bad my way now too because it has to even out. So my biggest thing in my recovery lately has been really I'm sorry. Cash goes, oh, that Katie, she's very pink. Oh God. That's hysterical.
That's on purpose.
Yeah. That's hysterical. But yeah, I mean, I just remember you know, in my recovery, I haven't been able I was for so long I couldn't celebrate any wins in my life because I was so petrified after something I deemed good happening that something bad was immediately going to happen that I had to prepare for. So even without the religious scrupulosity, I have that moral and that karma scrupulosity of worrying about the world punishing me or a higher power punishing me. So I definitely empathize with that situation. It's tough because God is supposed to be our, from what I've learned, is God is supposed to be our North Star and someone that comforts us. And I think for a while, and it's not every Catholic church, but for me, when growing up, the Catholic church I was a part of portrayed this God as this cruel person that's going to punish you if you do something wrong and don't obey him. When God is the most loving and the most loving being in the whole that you could ever be a part of, and the Holy Spirit is so loving. So I think trying to emphasize that for me in my treatment, not as reassurance, but understanding which type of God I worship, and it's the loving God and the God that knows I'm His son. That's been super helpful for me. But obviously, it's different with so many different faith backgrounds and religions.
And even atheism, and not subscribing to and
Hmm.
believing, there is um, that is so valid. And if
Hmm.
that's where your values lead you to, that's beautiful. And I'm sorry if anyone makes you feel otherwise in your family and otherwise, but you're
Definitely.
valid.
Um, Real quick, we're running out of time. Stacy, I agree. ACT in combination with ERP for me has been really, really helpful. Acceptance commitment therapy is extremely helpful in relation to treating OCD with the combination of ERP for sure. Live stream announcements before we go. One, actually, online OCD conference registration is now open. You can visit iocdf.org/online OCDcon to register. This year's online OCD conference will feature 2 days of virtual programming for the entire OCD and related disorders community. Walks are taking place across the country. Get your shoes on. Visit iocdf.org/walk to find a walk near you. And the online proposal system also is open for online OCD camp. If you're interested in presenting programming for that special event, visit iocdf.org/camp. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Is it Twitter or X now? I don't know what it's called. This live stream is also one of many. You can see the entire schedule of future streams at iocdf.org/peace of mind. I saw there was this question about where the schedule for live streams are. So remember, iocdf.org/peace of mind. You can also view recordings of past live streams like this one, because it's probably one of the best ones ever, as well as watch our hosts answer your pre-submitted questions, OCD mailbag. I want to take credit for that title. I decided that title in a lead advocate meeting, and I don't think anybody ever acknowledged that. On IOCDF's YouTube channel, youtube.com/IOCDF. Remember to like and subscribe to get notified when live streams are scheduled. If you need resources, please visit iocdf.org. Some upcoming live streams: Lunch and Learn tomorrow at 12 p.m. and Town Hall on September 5th at 7 p.m. and then Ask the Experts at 12 p.m. on Wednesday, September 6th. Again, you can see that entire schedule at iocdf.org/peace of mind. Thank you, everybody, for coming out and being here with us and being in this community. And thank you, Uma, for joining us today. This was a real treat.
It was such a joy to be here with all of you. Thank you all so much for all of your love to each other, to us, and for being on this journey. And just know that you're not alone, and we support you so much. And thank you, Tom. You're the best. The absolute best.
Thank you. Thank you.